Hello, it's June 17th, 2020, 10:32 a.m. here on the Pacific Coast. This is a what I've learned video, summation for people with cancer. I'm going to try and keep it short and tight so we don't strain your attention span. It's difficult having cancer. I'm an expert in surviving cancer. I've done it. I died from colon cancer and I've come back. It's taken me almost 2 years, and you can go and look at my Cancer Ward series to see me in the earlier stages of this. I've learned quite a bit through this process, and this is a summation of it. I have some other screens here I'll share, and you can get the gist off of them. All of this stuff has been thoroughly researched by myself, and I've come to certain conclusions, and you're welcome to research this material yourself and come to your own conclusions. I'm not going to present you with my experience of these substances and approaches. I'm just going to present you with some testimony from other people that have had recent experience with them, and you can, as I say, make up your own mind and go research it on your own. My approach, as you'll see from my Cancer Ward series, was to fire my oncologist. He was one dumb son of a bitch, as are most of the medicos I've had contact with. After all, someone's got to graduate in the middle and lower part of the class, and a lot of them are, throughout the whole system. Plus, they stop learning the minute they walk out of school, and even then, they're only learning the stuff that the authorities want them to learn for whatever reason. Conspiracy or not, doesn't make any difference. The nature of schooling and the nature of our society is such that your doctor will never be on the cutting edge of cancer treatment. So if you want to survive cancer, and you want to thrive after the process or through the process, which is very difficult, then you must take it under your own willpower and own direction, in my opinion. Okay, that's how I did it, basically. That's what I'm saying. I'm an expert in taking over my own cancer care, researching all this incredibly tedious information, reading through countless numbers of scientific studies, reading many books on the subject, going into great detail into everybody's theory as to what cancer is, where it comes from, et cetera, et cetera. And I have made up I have made my conclusions as a result of cross-comparing all of these. Let me point out something too. In the beginning, the concept of a PhD, as in an academic, in our language, people would say in past centuries, they would say when they'd obtained doctorates and PhD and they were asked about their academic career, if you will, they would reply by saying, oh, well, I read psychology at Oxford. Okay, and that's how they responded. I read psychology at Oxford. And it told you the name of the institution by which they were claiming credibility, Oxford in this case, and the subject matter in which they were claiming competency and certification. And then they told you the method by which they got there. They read. All they did was read books, okay? So given that that is the nature of things, they were basically accredited and certified for structured reading, for reading material that other people had picked. And that's the difference between someone who is schooled and someone who is educated. An educated person picks what books and what subjects they read, and they do so based on thinking. A schooled person reads what they're told to read and really nothing more. Almost all medicos, in my opinion, are schooled. And so I don't think very much of them and their approach to things. And in my opinion, I would have died within the next 6 months of the cancer surgery if I'd allowed my care to be in the hands of these less than competent, less than intelligent individuals. So I fired my medical staff and took it on my own. I made some very key discoveries, which I'm going to share. The key discoveries related to reading intensely in biomechanical or biomolecular physiology of cancer and all these various theories. going back many, 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 many decades. So a super survey of the cancer literature at the time. Bear in mind two things. I'm a software engineer, so I wrote software to help myself. I automated a great deal of the process. And I have a patent for a piece of software invention that allows me to read very fast from computer screens, up to 2,000 words a minute on appropriate text. So I was able to go through a great deal of material in a short period of time, even in my weakened condition. That is to say, trying to recover from the cancer surgery, let alone the cancer. So, under the circumstances, I discovered that Linus Pauling is correct. And you can find out all of his information at molecular, or hang on a second, I'll put the link in the description, but it's orthomolecular.org, I believe. And it's all about a concept that you cannot heal your body with chemicals that don't already exist in your body. And I agree with this. So in other words, I could not heal my body by taking in, glass, right? Or plastics. They're just not part of my system. So you can only heal my body by initiating processes within the body. The body heals itself. And so I set about doing things like getting into the optimal state of vitamins. You'll notice above my head, this is the optimal state of vitamin D and C in order to resist COVID. And it won't hurt resisting cancer either, because those are optimal states. That's the low optimal on D, by the way. I'm up at 63 on my last test, which is about the same level as lifeguards, okay? And I want to try and reach towards 120, which was the theoretical mid-baseline or near mean of the of our ancient ancestors, who were out 24 hours a day in daylight and absorbing and then making vitamin D in the process and using it overnight prior to the last ice age. So, but in any event, that's an aside. Anyway, so back to the cancer. So I optimized my vitamins, and I'm talking about all of them. A, D, this whole thing. You can go back and look at some of my other videos, but I've optimized all of them. If it's a vitamin, optimize it. Go and find out what the RDA is, and then throw that away and look for something significantly higher than that, under the idea that RDA is way too damn low for anything you really need, especially as a cancer patient. And so that's one aspect of this. Another aspect of this was that I came across research that was too late to aid me, but has aided a great many people, and that is about this substance called fenbendazole. And fenbendazole is a anti-tumor material that you can take with vitamins. It does you very little, if any good at all, taken without the vitamins, okay? And they discovered that they used to use it to treat pinworm infections in lab mice and rats and such, right? And we use it for dogs as a deworming agent. And that's where you'll find it. You'll find it on Amazon as a dog deworming agent. If you have cancer, in my opinion, you should buy this stuff and consume it, because your cancer is very, very likely to go away. And I'll show you some testimony to that effect in just a minute. Here is, as you can see, it's a U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health, NCBI database listing of a journal article about the unexpected anti-tumor effects of this fenbendazole when combined with supplementary vitamins. Since I began my Cancer Ward series many, many, many months ago, I've kept and brought up fenbendazole as soon as I discovered it. I've received many letters by people that took it or are taking it, and some people, and no one has reported any gut distress, okay? Even people with colon cancer have reported no gut distress from taking this stuff. I know of people that were taking it at the level of 12 grams a day for advanced pancreatic cancer, and then have now, since the advanced pancreatic cancer had backed off, they're now backed off of that dosage down to 3 or 2 or 1 on a maintenance dose. One guy takes his maintenance dose weekly. For whatever reason, he just does it that way as opposed to every day. But so far, as I say, I've received no reports of fenbendazole when combined with supplementary vitamins causing anyone any gut distress or any other side effects for that matter. And so it's really remarkable. And I have that material here should I be re-diagnosed with any kind of cancer. Because bear in mind, if you've received a diagnosis of cancer, whether they've debulked you, which is their euphemism for slicing you open and leaving damage behind as they try and cut out the cancer, or not, your body is now in a state where it produces cancer cells. So once a cancer diagnosis, the likelihood is you will receive another one later on in your life, especially if you follow the advice of oncologists and basically do nothing for your general state of health and to alter your biomolecular and bioelectrical physiology. Okay? At its core, cancer is a metabolic condition disease. It is not genetic. It doesn't come from a virus. It does not come from bacteria or chemicals or any of that. Okay, you can be exposed to chemicals, but if you don't have the how do I want to say this? If you don't have the biomolecular pre-existing conditions of a weakened system in some manner, you are unlikely to develop cancers when exposed to most of these carcinogens in the general course of things. If you're constantly exposed to heavy levels of carcinogens, even with a healthy immune system, you will probably develop some signs of cancers. Okay, but in a general sense, the human body is capable of dealing with cancer kind of events if it's in an optimal state. But once you've got a condition of having produced cancer cells, then you will find that you will have a tendency to produce more of them going forward because your body is already got that mechanism sitting there just simply sort of turning over. So cancer is a metabolic disease. Know this from the beginning, and instantly, as soon as you receive a diagnosis, stop the intake of all sugars and, in my opinion, all carbs for the duration of your treatment. You can get down to a ketogenic period where you just consume fats and proteins, and the cancer will wither. It needs sugars, it needs carbs, and it will demand those of you any way it can. And if you deny them, you can starve cancer out. In fact, there's several books to that effect. You can look at cancer as a metabolic disease on Amazon and get any number of books from medicos who, at one way or another, are approaching it with the idea of, oh, let's starve it. So this is why Gerson therapy does not work, because Gerson therapy is providing vast quantities of fructose, which is fruit sugar, to your cancer via the juicing. So if you want to die quickly of cancer, certainly take a lot of juice and sugar and get that cancer all plumped up so it can eat you right away, hollow you right out. Stop sugar, stop carbs. Get your carbs less than 50, if you can, less than 30. I've been continuing it that way for almost 2 years now. Let me see. So solidly without carbs other than a few vegetables once a week, through the course of a week for well over a year, and probably an additional 6 months of getting there in terms of getting off of sugar and then getting off of all the carbs, and I've done very well that way. And now I took other approaches. I took medicinal mushrooms. I took chaga, very potent anti-cancer mushroom. I've been taking that for 18 months daily. And maybe I've missed 2 or 3 days in that period of time, 5 or something like that, who knows, but very few. And that works for me. So now you can pick up the URL off of the image here. If you care to investigate, you can use these search terms to dig further into that database. Let's move on. Here are some presented. So what I did was I got this email back when I forwarded it to myself to get it out to this workstation here in the office, and I've blanked out hopefully everything that identifies anybody by name. And as you can see, here are 4 reports, and a brief description of what's going on down in the bottom. This is from a fellow that is not a native English speaker. Some of the spelling will reflect a Germanic linguistic bent. Okay, so you can see that we're talking about people that have had small cell carcinoma in the bladder, small cell lung cancer. That's really a tough one to beat, by the way. Metastasized to the liver and kidney, came home to die. FB, by the way, is fenbendazole. Another guy with pancreatic cancer and metastasized in 6 spots in the kidney, was not able to eat. That's a bad sign. I got there, within the last couple of months, I just could not consume food, no saliva. I had terrible colon cancer undiagnosed and just didn't know it. And then in the last couple of weeks, I simply could not eat. I went to my final low weight there of about 138.2 pounds or something like that. But it's very deceptive because at that point, a lot of it was fat because I had a very terrible body mass index because the cancer demanded that I eat sugar continuously just to get enough energy to get up every morning. And so it put a lot of fat on me because of the consumption of the carbs and reduced muscle mass tremendously. So anyway, we'll get to that in just a second. So here we are, we go on through, we've got a guy with pancreatic cancer, blah, blah, blah. Cancer tumors have shrunk and they're encapsulated. That I keep hearing over and over again. This is just one of many emails I've received from people about their results with fenbendazole. A lot of people, especially with kidney cancers, report that before the cancer tumor leaves 100%, it removed, shrunk by the fenbendazole, they will encapsulate. That is to say, they show up hard on x-rays. And then some period of time later, 5 weeks or so, they're 100% gone. And they shrink before they encapsulate. So the process is very interesting that way. All different kinds of reports of breast cancer being effectively dealt with by fenbendazole. But there is something else. Breast cancer is hugely affected by diet. So it's kind of rough on women because it'll drive them towards a consumption of carbs, just as it did with men. All right, so now this is essentially all I wanted to present. I've only got a couple of more minutes of this stuff, and I wanted to just put this up for people because we've had some reports of acquaintances and friends that have recently been diagnosed. Okay, so cancer is a metabolic condition. It's not really a disease in the sense of your body is at dis-ease, but it is not induced 100% by a bacterium or a virus or something, right? So, or an amoeba or something like that. So, but those conditions or those elements can induce the start of the cancer, but it requires that that your body have the conditional state to keep it going and create the cancer and have it invade the tissue and start sucking blood and so on. So in order to deal with it in many different ways and many different levels, but some things to understand. Cancer may be multi-generational in the sense that I'm quite convinced that my cancer is a result of the retroviruses that were induced into my body when I was a child. These same retroviruses, at the time they were introduced in vaccines in the 50s, they created a statistical bloom for people that were born in the 50s and 60s and had to endure this vaccination process. And so we find that in the 50s, we start using antiviral agents, okay? That's what they were called. They were called vaccines. And the idea was that they would aid us by developing antigens. But the process of creating them, and if you read Plague of Corruption or Plague, these two great books that are on Amazon, you should really read them, you'll discover that we had mouse viruses, mouse brain tissue that was used to cultivate viruses that were then put in big batches, and who the hell knows what emerged, and those things were given to us as polio vaccine and others. And so that's how they manufacture the vaccine. And in the 50s, coincidentally, with the introduction of the vaccines with mouse retrovirus in them, we have, in the USA, we have colon cancer rates go like this. So this is a generation of the baby boomers, right? And this is colon cancer. And what it does is this. And you know, there's a bunch of boomers born back here and they don't really get the vaccine, but it starts showing up like this. With this stair-step fashion, and each one of these would be, you know, if you survive to that point, you survive to that point. And here's the hell of it. This is mainly males. And what we also find is that because of the mitochondrial, the mothers, so the maternal mitochondrial DNA filter for viruses prevents the females of this generation from being impacted with the colon cancer the way that the males were. But here's what happens. This generation of women produced children, and they transferred to the children. And so right here, we start seeing a rise of autism. And that's likely the transmission of this viral, this mouse retrovirus effect into a previous generation here, or into the next generation there, into a descendant generation. And what do we know about autism that's interesting as well? Primarily affects males. You know, males dominate here within those cohorts. And it has to do with how the mitochondrial DNA tries to protect the species by insisting on very clean filters through the mother's genetics. So if you read those two books, you get an idea of what goes on here, all right? And so this is very nasty business. And you can say it's a conspiracy and all of this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. Okay, what does matter is they don't know how to manufacture vaccines safely, and that they've induced multi-generational, the big pharma, have induced multi-generational damage through descendants having autism, et cetera, and then also they induced delayed, but in that concurrent generation, damage in the form of huge blooms in colon cancer and other kinds of intestinal cancers. And what do we note about all of this? Autism is frequently thought to be tied to gut biome. Yep, hang on a second. Sorry about that. Deliveries. Okay, so also back here, what do we have here? Colon cancer. It also is an issue with gut biome. Duh. So, you know, it's sad. We've been hugely screwed over by big pharma and academia and stupid asses that think they know what they're doing and they don't really. And many people have died and will die, and there's been much suffering as a result. So, you know, take to heart this last line here in the observation thing. The hardest part is how the doctors persistently, dogmatically manipulate the patient into other treatments using the weakened state of the patient. And it's like, this is crap. They do that. And if you don't have a strong will, you will not survive. So if you don't have a strong will, you need to have your people around you have a strong will against these stupid fucking academically schooled doctors, in my opinion, as an expert of surviving cancer and colon cancer and an expert in research. So anyway, guys, you can do it. There's a list of the things you need to do. There's a lot of people that are discussing fenbendazole. You can go to Reddit. You can go to many different fora and examine how it helps you, and get serious about overcoming this and saying, hey, fuck you, to all of the naysayers who would have you die of their fucking treatment. And no, I would not take chemo. I've never found a smart oncologist. If I found one, I wouldn't fire him. But a smart oncologist would be an intelligent man that applied his intelligence to his own body and was fucking fit, right? You wouldn't believe the stupid asshole doctors I had to deal with in my quest for effective cancer treatment. And they're all ill. They're all... none of them present well. I mean, geez, they're pasty, they're low vitamin, they're big doughboys, It makes you shudder just thinking about it. I'll shut up. That's about it. Anyway, be smart in order to be well.